Okay. In this dream, I would find myself in the presence of some very dubious fellows. They were sporting expensive suits and sipping equally as expensive wine from probably very highly priced crystal goblets. They made no attempt to conceal who they were. They were dark forces peoples, the evil ones. And then they offered me a deal. It was vast quantities of monies. I declined. They seemed unperturbed, not put out of countenance, and the scene faded away. In the next scene, I was in the old living room of my deceased grandmother's house, and there was Peter, my father, and my deceased grandmother, suddenly not quite so deceased. Peter extended a document to me, and on examination it proved to be a life insurance policy. My gran insisted I sign it. I hesitated. I'd never signed a real side document before. The momentary delay had my gran dissolve into a fit of rage, seething and demanding I sign it. At this point, my real self-awareness afforded me the impressions of deception. It was a ruse or other, and so I declined yet again, and the scene would fade away. So in the initial scene, it was a very blatant attempt to buy me off, and everyone will undoubtedly experience such if they choose the journey to the ears. Some have speculated how they could consider taking the money and simply continue on with their awareness process. Maybe use the funding for a beneficial cause. Nevertheless, I wouldn't wish to be in the controller's pockets, for surely to take their coin would be tantamount to an agreement, and talk about a deal with the devil. Taplines would surely follow, and maybe the kind of cause and effect karma then that would allow me to be destroyed far more readily. As with anyone who accepts their blood money, seems they very easily are taken out. So it follows that such dealings place an individual in this karmic potential assassination predicament. In scene 2, I did not at first see through the deception. The real side does indeed reveal all. It seems that awareness is required to have knowledge of the other creational vehicles first, then to be able to regulate the vehicle's behaviors, to conceal and obfuscate. Naturally, very aware beings on their process wouldn't need to do this, as they would be far more sincere, and thus to hide who they really were on the real side would be unnecessary. The controllers then have awareness to a point, up to say a certain life level, but not enough to conceal and rein in all their other vehicles, and so they are laid bare as the dodgy individuals that they choose to be. So the controllers do like to mimic and replicate people we know through clones and shapeshifting. But it seems again, with their awareness marginal at best, their copies are flawed, but only flawed to the view of those with the awareness to see them, or they'd be very believable. As in a few dreams, when I've encountered Dark Force replicas, they've either been distorted, unfinished, or on occasion faceless. I was able to recognize the attempted deception through my real awareness. On this occasion, though, the duplicates were very good, and so I would suggest that as moments pass, the controllers up the ante. They send in more adept tiers of their shape-shifting minions to attempt to deceive where the lesser agents had failed. But still, if I stand in my awareness, I will see through even the best of their minions. In this case, I was able to perceive their rage, very characteristic of emotionally driven controllers, and perhaps, had I not been in my awareness, a blanketing filter might have had me not only seeing them as the genuine family members, but unable to see their real intent, demonstrated with their irate natures. I may have seen them as all charms and smiles. They may have been able to maintain the facade up to a certain life level before their limited awareness prevented them from doing so any further, and with awareness one can step into a position beyond creation and see it all, glean impressions from all 5 vehicles in all 5 life levels. The life insurance was curious. The controllers are always watching us, always looking for opportunities and ways in. Recently, through some real-side experiences, I had formed the opinion I was going to be passing over, but on sharing this, I was assured by Duane that we are always the decider. If we have the awareness, we can decide whatever we want, and far more prudent to stay in my current position and continue on with my awareness. So, consequently, I took this on board and decided just that, and have had no similar dreams of a passing over nature since. But it seems the controllers were watching and took the chance to perhaps reinstall this notion by persuading me to sign a real-side life insurance policy. If I had done so, this would be an agreement then, and possibly I'd re-establish my decision to pass on. And if I overlooked this dream and forgot all about it, I'd have this decision rattling around my subconscious, and with any agreement, I'd have another tap line. It would be in the interests of the controllers to persuade an individual to pass over, particularly one on their journey to the ears, as they must realize too that if I passed on and returned, I may not re-establish my connection with my awareness, and in essence, they'd have convinced me to potentially forfeit my opportunity, at least for now. Also, if I returned and my connection with my awareness was absent, what an opportunity for them to take me out before I do, perchance re-establish my awareness and begin causing trouble again from their perspective. Or they might seize the chance to buy me off straight away to cater to my personal self, who, without the connection to the real self and the ears, would be far more persuadable, for a disconnected personal self sure loves its thrills, its fortunes, and fame. Then I'd have myself spiraling into a cause and effect, future lifetimes, chasing all these little intents and material things. Following on from this dream, I had another of a similar person mimicking nature. On this occasion, I couldn't see, though had the impression of being amongst new friends, and we were all in communication with Duane. I was asking him questions about this and that, and such and so forth, and a little like the dream earlier, where the controllers can mimic up to a point, maybe up to a certain life level their awareness will permit them. But that which can be recognized by one able to stand with the ears and see all creation and all life levels and vehicles, and so any hint of deception can be recognized. Here again, the mimicry was very good, so perhaps one of their better minions. For as I was speaking with Duane, the impressions I received were that something was off. He was speaking the words, but they had no life to them. They were not infused with the vibrancy, the aliveness of the true reality. And then I saw further through the smoke screen. His voice began to change also. It became a female voice. So the filters of deception reached so far before the impostor was revealed. It's very possible the deceiver was perhaps Joni, or maybe a female of a fair degree of doppelganger mimicking acumen. For where I was, I could not see the new friends or Duane, just the impressions of them. So all I can say here is be aware that some of these controllers do seem to have some remarkable abilities and very clever mimicking skills, but that as clever as they are self-limited, and if one stands real with the ears, their deceptions and smoke screens are exposed. So, I guess you could call this a heads up. Watch out for those pesky dark forces. That's the end of that one.
As always, Kevin, excellent. That was excellent. And so the question is that what do your parents really do at night? They seem to have another job, don't they? So again, we're all kind of funny. But yes, creation is what it is. And it's not what we think it is from this personal view that's very, very limited. So yeah, these experiences that you're having, great examples of learning to be more objective about things and taking on the idea of the karma idea. Now, Paul did this too. He did things intentionally to take on the karma, and so do I. And it's kind of like the Robin Hood idea that actually came from England and what have you, where robbing from the rich, giving to the poor, because really, where did the rich get their money in the first place? Well, they robbed from the poor, usually, the kings and the queens and whatever. They stole everything they have, and they're looked to exceptionally, but people don't see the whole history of it. So this is where the individual takes on the adventure and risk to take on the situation. So it really doesn't become karmic then in that nature or tap line so much when it's providing something. You see, that becomes different. It is so that when the person is going after something personally and wants to have it for themselves only, which is fine, it's all fine, that becomes its own nature. But when the individual steps up and does something, and especially with the whole of life, no, then it's a whole different story. So just like you signing the agreement there, I see that it's the old story of making a contract with the devil. Well, Marjorie Klemp did this. I knew this. I knew this when this happened and everything like that many, many years ago. Most people didn't see it. The early '80s when Harold took over. Well, she made an agreement with Joni. That's why she stepped aside, and all of a sudden Harold had a new wife, because Joni knew that she needed that position, not just to be someone on the outside, but to have a real position as the puppet master controller behind the curtain with Harold, and without Marjorie in the way. So a deal was made. And so with that deal, Marjorie didn't do well at all, especially as she passed. And she was even forgotten. There was not even a mention of her at all. But had she made the deal, and all those people that looked to her, because I knew Marjorie myself, and I saw the following that she had, and she had taken on the adventure to present something more real about what's going on, then she would have been okay. But she went with the deal with the personal self. That becomes the difference, you see. So again, there's the intent there, and this is where people do not have to be afraid to take on risk and circumstances. Me, I would have signed the contract, taken the situation and made it an adventure and turned it around. You see, so again, but each person decides, and it's all okay. Whatever you decide is okay, but there's always a way to do it. And again, Paul did that here too. He took a drink in Europe there and took on poison. He purposely did it. The idea was, well, he took on karma, but no, what he did was he took on the adventure to figure it out and the challenge to see what he could do with it. Doesn't mean it's going to be successful, doesn't mean people are going to listen. No, but you take on the adventure. And I have things in the business world that I've taken on that most people, I even used to tell my friends and relatives and family members, they didn't want to hear it. It's like, what are you doing? The thing is, but I want to do that. And so, and I get the backing of it too. I have for years, and it's been a heck of a process for me and a real education so that I can step up to the next step and deal with the world itself, confront it, and then the solar system, galaxy, and all of creation. So taken this on to do this. So when you do it from that position, no, you're not getting the tap lines and the karma, whatever, because the boys are backing you when they see the intent that you are willing to walk into the fire and do something, because this is what they've done. And each individual needs to do that. You know, they need to, walk the razor's edge. That's the old idea. And so that they can have that position for themselves so they can stand real. So this is where it becomes different, you see, from the personal self to a real position of taking on whatever it is right now, because there's only a window, you might say, open for the moment. And that's it. And, it's like the ships going out to sea. They need a particular tide. They need the incoming tide and the outgoing tide, and they got to wait for that. And there's just a particular window. Well, we just have a particular window right here, and it's just like when Paul was here. There was a window there. Then all of a sudden, things got funny, didn't they? Well, that window was gone, but yet people think it's still there because the carcass is still there. And they think that the carcass is the reality. Well, it's not. And so things have become so, well, it's a new position. Well, it took time, and there was a waiting period, and others were given the opportunity. But of course, it was known that it was just going to be whatever. And so again, until things got to the point, kind of like a cake in the oven baking, it's like, okay, it's ready, ding, it's 2001. Now we're going to start a new position here. You see, so there's just windows of opportunity where people are thinking that, oh, it'll always be around. Well, the is the is, but there are so many factors in creation to get it ready, just like all the parts to build your car. Yeah, you have the idea of the car. It's like, well, I can get a car anywhere, but all of a sudden, if you ain't got the parts, you ain't got a car. And so it takes a lot to get this vehicle for people to relate to be established and workable into the world as we are now. It's taken a lot for me to figure this out to get to this point. And so then when I leave and whatever, and things become so, what's going to happen next? So again, this is how life is now, right here, now. And this is all it can be. And each decision that is made through free will and what is presented, well, decisions are made and things become so. Nothing is taken for granted. It's just very, very real. But your three movies there are excellent, Kevin, as always. And yes, you will be the young Spielberg. Well, you are, and eventually make great movies. We got to make movies out of these things. It's so cool.